Okay, we ready? All right. Meeting of the Finance Committee is called to order at 9:35 a.m. on April 21st, 2025. Oh, there we go. We have Alderman Savage, I see. We'll start with a roll call. Alderwoman Finlayson,
I am present.
Alderwoman O'Neill,
Present.
and I will note that we also have Alderman Savage here virtually, Alderwoman Pindell Charles, and Alderman Arnett all here today with us. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our budget manager for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. For the record, Jake Trudeau, Budget Manager. Before you, you have revised page 47. You will see on there, it is a correction to the staffing summary for 25 only. So they have an Environmental Programs Manager 1 that has increased to 2. So the total increase for the staffing summary is 13, and that agrees to 26 as well. There's no issue for 26. It's
Do you memorize the alphabet? 47. Okay. One more.
So again, no
Sorry.
issues. That's all right. No issues with FY26. That is a vacant position for FY25, but the funding is included.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm sorry, could you repeat the last line you said?
Funding.
The funding is included, but it is a vacant position. And
Excellent.
I'm sorry, I missed most of what you were saying.
that's all right. I'll go through it again. So you have before you page 47, which is a correction to the city manager staffing summary. That correction increases the environmental programs manager. There's actually 2 positions which are funded in FY25 and 26. It's vacant for 25. And so the total number of staffing positions is 13 for both 25 and 26.
13 for 25 and for 26
Total staffing.
total.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Budget Manager. Ms. Jackson, do we need a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. We have in front of us today the presentations from the city manager's office and then from our integrated technology solutions office. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda. And I'm sorry, we actually have a third item on the agenda, which is a supplemental appropriation from Public Works, which will happen at the end. Apparently, and emergency management also. So, is there a motion to approve the agenda for the city manager's office, the integrated technology solutions, and the 2 supplemental appropriations?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
that second essay is for the city manager. I know it says a federal grant. I just don't want OEM to panic and have to feel like they have to come down here.
Got
So
it.
it is for city manager.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, let's get started, and we'll start our little shot clock and turn it over to our assistant, or are you deputy now? Did we change that?
Oh, yeah, I guess you did change the title, Deputy City Manager for Administration.
Approve the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, we will approve. Do I see a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Move approval of the minutes from the March 19th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. And thank you, Ms. Buckland.
Thank you so much. Obviously, we've got a little bit of a different format this year. We're going to try to be very quick through this so that we have plenty of time for discussion. Deputy City Manager Victoria Buckland. I'm joined by Jackie Guild, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability, folks from the Harbor Master's office and folks from the Office of Community Services. I will ask that all of you guys come up and join me so you can speak to your pieces as they come up. No. Come now, but then we don't have to wait for things. So I'll go ahead and kick things off. The main things, obviously, you can read within the budget book yourself what the particular budget is for the city manager's office and its constituent components. When I think through how do I organize in my own mind the work within the city manager's office over this last year, the two main themes that emerge for me are really dealing with transitions of various kinds and trying to bring several projects to completion. This administration, this council has started a number of things over the years, and as we get toward the end of terms, part of the goal is to see the end of those things and really see the fruits of those labors. Obviously, this year we had 2 new directors that we hired. Obviously, we also have a transition within the city manager's office itself that we're dealing with. And of course, the other really big transition that happened was at the federal level. You have already heard a lot about different effects and holds on grants. You'll hear more of that as we go through the various budget presentations from the various departments. But part of our task is to really keep an eye on the big picture, and more particularly to make sure that we're positioned to deal with the fallout from those effects, whatever that might be. And to also then play a protective role for the city to try to make sure that we are as exposed as little as possible to the various changes that are happening at the federal level. On terms of completing projects, the big ones this year, getting the class and comp study all the way across the finish line, obviously is really a big one. It's through the legislative process, but as you guys well know, there's some of the implementation stuff that we're still in. We finished the National Employee Survey. You guys should have gotten a copy of those results. And we implemented a new community calendar called WITH. Now for next year, obviously, the transitions continue because now we have election and we have brand new council members, a new administration. And so onboarding of new directors is an ongoing issue. That takes more than just a couple of months, right? That's sort of a whole first year. So we'll still be doing some of that. There's obviously some last pieces of legislation that we've talked about and making sure those get across the finish line for this council. And then making sure we're prepared for an incoming council, making sure we've documented current status and that we're ready to do briefings. We need to monitor federal action, and obviously for this year, hiring that state lobbyist is important for us. There are a bunch of different capital projects that I know both this administration and the council are really interested in, trying to make sure that we're making progress on those fronts to try to get to as much completion as possible before the end of terms. And we made some commitments to you guys this year about really making sure we implement the budget in a timely fashion, particularly on the personnel side, because that was something that really lingered this year. Obviously, what you'll notice is that we're not really making big changes in the city manager's office budget. Part of the goal this next year is not really expansion in line with the previous things. It's more making the most out of what we have. So bringing in additional partners for the community calendar, monitoring the move to 25 Shaw, which hopefully frees up some space here to do things like hire that, make sure we have space for that second environmental programs coordinator, the administrative assistant that's within the city manager's office, et cetera. I am going to go ahead and turn it over. We're just going to, unless you have questions along the way, we're just going to kind of go through each of us, kind of what's in our mind, how do we think about it? And I will turn this over to Jackie.
Ms. Buckland, you mind clarifying what WITH is, you said?
Yeah. Yeah, WITH is if you go on the city website now and you look at the calendar, there it actually is a link to a different product than it used to be there. It actually has a lot of different capabilities within it. Not only to, right now, it's mostly just showing calendar items, but it has a bunch of other capabilities to issue tickets, notify people, like let's say we have a board and commission meeting that changed from one night to another. You have the ability, if people have signed up, to do outreach to those folks to let them know, and a bunch of other things like that. So it's not a huge product, but it has a lot of capabilities, and I would like for us to kind of delve into that a little bit deeper. The title of the software is WIF.
I got one now. Good morning, Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. So I'm going to cover the highlights for the resilience and sustainability work that we as staff in my area work mostly on. Of course, we work across all departments, and we have some rather big projects with Public Works and some in planning and zoning and some other departments that we contribute in varying degrees to, sometimes quite significantly. And we work quite a bit with the Resilience Authority on a number of projects that are multi-million-dollar projects that we contribute to as far as getting grants and helping administer and making decisions. But I'm going to focus on some of the things we just do pretty much ourselves as staff. And the Harbor Master, of course, reports to me, and they have a separate presentation. So we've been focusing on our greenhouse gas inventory update. The last update was done in 2008 on 2006 data. And we currently have a contractor, Caramita, that is starting work this month on it. And one reason this is such an important project is data will be gathered and updated. We have a lot of new facilities, different types of transit, where we have different stormwater projects and other things going on that have impact our greenhouse gas emissions and our climate change projects. And this will help us, especially now with tighter funding from federal government and more competition at the state funding level, to focus our work, focus our staff resources, and identify our vulnerabilities and opportunities in which projects we need to undertake to make Annapolis most resilient as effectively and efficiently and as quickly as possible, because we're running against a climate clock. To that work in focusing on reducing carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases and pollutants, we completed this year our inventory of our land and marine vehicles, and the first step in developing a strategy to electrify our fleet, our transportation, including transportation that we all use throughout the city, as well as our transit system, fire and police, and including electric vessels, marine vessels. That will help us target our efforts in these directions, as well as making budget proposals and going after particular funding. I mentioned marine vessels. We spent a significant part of this year working with the Harbor Master's Office and other departments on developing the RFP, evaluating naval architect design firms, and identifying a naval architect firm to build us our electric ferry, as well as looking what docking improvements needed to be made, and design started on that. That project right now is on hold until we get further direction from the Federal Transit Administration. We should have heard within the 30-day review period by the end of March where that grant would be heading, but we have not yet, so we have to follow up on that. But a significant amount of time was put into that project this year. Also important is that we were selected for a grant-funded resilient building code for smaller buildings. The state has requirements for larger buildings of 20,000 square feet and above, but not for smaller buildings. And our code is not written in a way that focuses on resilience. So we're working with the Resilience Authority and a number of other jurisdictions that are coastal cities on a model code for our planning and zoning department to further work on, and then we would propose it to City Council to adopt. So we are focusing, and I'll mention this later, on building efficiency and energy and clean, reliable energy in buildings as part of our project to reduce our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions. And then, of course, we're still working on electric vehicles, purchasing those. We installed the first rapid charger at the Visitor Center this summer. And we've had grant funding for city facilities for EV infrastructure. charging so that we can support our fleet and other areas with EV vehicles, and also for utility pole charging, so on-street charging, so residents and businesses, especially those without garages and driveways, can also own electric vehicles and charge them. We've also evaluated the solar park for pollinator habitat and have a design that's ready to go as soon as we get sign off from MDE on some monitoring that we need to do there. And we've put a great deal of effort into public education and assistance with transitions to single-use plastics, such as with the plastic bag ban, and developed a voucher program that is being developed right now for the gas to support the transition to gas-powered leaf blowers. We've also focused on water conservation, native bird species, and pollinator habitat with our education. Looking ahead to FY26, the trends we see, again, less federal funding, greater reliance on state and local, meaning city funding for our resilience projects. You cannot mention the words resilience or climate change to the federal government. They will not touch a project like that. So this puts additional emphasis on staff capacity, in which we're already very stretched there. And that's where I see things going with grants and projects. We'll continue to focus on greenhouse gas emissions, as I mentioned, reductions from buildings and transportation, which are our biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, and the protection of natural resources that mitigate and prevent climate change impacts. So our tree canopy, getting that 50% goal met, shoreline protection, conservation in green spaces and forests, and then a greater focus on waste reduction, reuse, recycle, and compost. The last three I mentioned where we're putting a lot of focus on are not only because they are needed and they will help the city achieve its goals for the environment and greenhouse gas emissions reductions, but it's also where the state puts a lot of its focus for funding. So those are all areas to further focus upon. I just highlighted for the performance measures, one with that was from FY25, it's our greenhouse gas emissions update for the community and city facilities. That is now being broken down to a phase 1 and phase 2, because I added for FY26 a climate action plan relying on the data that we gather and the analysis that is done in the first phase. We can then form a climate action plan, which will again help us focus our resources and our time and energy where it is most important and most effective and can be most expeditiously accomplished. I also added in a lighting efficiency study. We've already have a proposal received from Tanco Lighting to do an analysis of the city's utility poles. And that analysis looks to conversion to LED, a lot of which we have done already, but not completely, because BG&E owns and maintains some of our poles. The city, they own some, but the city does the maintenance, and then the city owns and maintains some poles. So BG&E is not involved in conversion or maintenance or interested in doing so for poles it does not own and maintain. So that's on the city, and we're already doing some LED conversion, but this analysis will look further into the feasibility and the costs of acquiring all of our utility poles and then doing an LED conversion. And so there's money, I'm requesting the budget under our contract services for that feasibility study, and perhaps some money would be directed towards actually starting the work in FY26. They're projected the first year we could save $319,000, almost $320,000 just in the energy that we would save. And in 20 years, by maintaining, owning, and converting to LED, the city in 20 years could save over $6.5 million by owning and maintaining and converting to LED. So I just highlighted those two performance standards. So other things to be aware of for the work in resilience and sustainability, everything we're doing is working towards the Maryland goals that were set in the Maryland Climate Action legislation for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 60% from 2006 levels by 2035 and achieving net zero emissions by 2050. And as I mentioned, the city's greatest emissions are coming from transportation and buildings. So again, our work is focused in those areas. Resilience and sustainability stuff are small but mighty. We secured $450,000 in grants, $50,000 in technical value for our model building code. We assisted the Resilience Authority and other city departments in securing over almost $3 million in grants this year. And during session, we evaluated 25 bills during the General Assembly session. They kept us quite busy with environmental legislation this year. And that's not to mention the city legislation that I also evaluate and contribute to. We also, some of the outreach and education work I mentioned earlier helps meet the requirements of the city's
If I can just
MS4 permit.
interject. So that is our 15-minute
Okay.
mark. So obviously we have quite a bit more
Yep.
to go through with this presentation, but I think at this point we should.
Oh, no, I'm almost done with mine. So
Okay, so I think we should wrap up with the environmental part at this
Okay.
point. Move on to OCS and Harbor Master, and let's say
Yep.
try and limit it to 4 minutes each for OCS and Harbor Master.
And you covered the new position that was actually positioned in FY25, and that is critical to, as I mentioned, we're pretty stretched, and we're getting more stretched because of the lack of federal funding. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob Nold, Shoreside Operations Supervisor. I'll try to keep it short. So fiscal year 25 highlights. We achieved significant cost savings by undertaking various projects in-house. Big ones are transportation of the fireworks barges, execution of deck and dock repairs, boat maintenance and repairs, as well as minor plumbing and electrical repairs. We coordinate and actively participate in 10 to 12 special events, ensuring the safety and operational efficiency, thereby contributing to positive experiences for the participants. We administer over $1.34 million in grants designated for dock and shoreline improvements. 82,000 of that is for pump out boat operations, 25,000 for derelict and debris removal. And then the remainder is for waterway improvement grants to improve street end parks and such. In response to public demand, we are in the process of implementing a kayak rack pilot program that's supposed to be at Truxton Park. We're working with a contractor to get that installed by probably mid-May and get the ball rolling on that. We applied, as Ms. Guild spoke on, a $2 million grant for acquisition of an electric ferry. Took up a good chunk of our time in the fall and winter. We're currently overseeing a task force for house barges, floating homes, and other commercial vessels, as you all likely know. And we've had a significant decline in absence of incidents such as drownings, boat collisions, boat fires, etc., which is great to see. And we have last year processed, or this fiscal year have processed 4 abandoned boat cases, resulting in criminal abandonment and littering charges. And I'll pass it on to Tim Jacobs.
Good morning, Tim Jacobs, the Harbors and Masters Office. As the Annapolis City Dock project continues to progress, we're going to have some power outages and construction may impact some of our income. May change the amount of available docking and the mooring activity and ultimately the revenue. Mooring activity being that most mooring customers are looking for our restrooms as well and amenities. We do expect, based on the last couple years' trends, that abandoned boats will continue to be on the rise. We're implementing a few different procedures to kind of identify them early and working with our state partners to get rid of them at a minimal cost to the city. The other major highlight here is that we're working on installing more moorings and reconfiguring the St. Mary's mooring field to make it more useful. You'll notice sometimes all of our moorings are full with the exception of those just based off of the size limitations of those moorings.
All right, Tyler Northfield, Deputy Harbor Master. I won't go through all the performance measures, but I'll tell you the year-to-date actual. We are happy to report that the Classic Comp study is working out for us. Looking forward to the end of the results. In the first performance measure, we talked about complaints, working on better customer service. As of now, we have no notable complaints, major complaints. Second performance measure, we talked about the lower number of violations and incidents. accidents in-house for boat accidents, and luckily report that we had no boat accidents. Knock on wood. Still early. And then let's see. Doing some talks at local sailing clubs about safety. Is that it? There we go. Okay. And then I'll end up with the last one, increased boat ramp revenue at Tucker Street and Truxton Park. We've been working with SP Plus, trying to work with SP Plus to get tag readers to make it more efficient with enforcement and just overall the experience of the customer.
Great. Thank you. Go to OCS, please.
Good morning, Aisha Young, Community Engagement Administrator with the Office of Community Services. So our highlights speak on our rental, just the ongoing high demand for rental and utility assistance that we continually see, high need for tenant rights education, tenant rights and responsibility, and then strengthening the collaboration to support long-term sustainability. So reducing the amount of repeat residents who apply every year, just trying to make sure that they're more sustainable. Of course, increasing our visibility. In my year here, I realized that a lot of people don't know who OCS is, or they confuse us with other departments, or they think Aaron is a part of the police department sitting back there in Robinwood. So we're just trying to distinguish that visibility in who we are. So we're going to attend frequent events. Again, we're seeing that they're unsure of who we are or what we offer. We're trying to make sure that they understand all of that. Also partners and staff. Sometimes I realize that some of the staff members also don't understand the office or our scope of work. So we want to make sure that we are increasing our visibility there. Strengthen our partnerships and collaboration. A lot of the organizations do a lot of the same work, so we want to make sure that we formalize those relationships and reduce that duplication of service and make sure that all our efforts are aligned for greater community impact. So shifting to collaborating instead of competing against one another, and then of course multiple partners to co-serve, cross-promote resources so that we're all together and not working against each other. So for expected trends, again, we're going to continue with the housing utility assistance. It's ongoing demand for rental, especially with the current climate and people losing their jobs. So we're seeing more demand for that. So upcoming events we do have is financial literacy workshops and tenant rights and responsibility workshops. Again, strengthening community presence and brand recognition, so residents will begin to more strongly associate OCS with trusted city-based resources. Events we have for that, the updated resource guide in English and Spanish. I can send that to you all in a PDF form. Unfortunately, was unable to get it printed out. Pop-up resource events we have in health and wellness fairs. You should also have a copy of the flyer that we created that we are going to hand out and try to post. Has a QR code on there that people can scan, takes them right to our services pages. We just want to make sure that people know who we are and then increase that visibility as we mentioned. And we think flyering and putting those flyers certain places and dropping them off at Robinwood will also help with increasing that visibility. And then strengthen partnerships and collaboration. Again, relationships with trusted community partners will help extend the reach of our services, share our resources, and of course, improve access for underserved populations. Again, we're working with partners such as ACDS and Community Legal Services to host those financial literacy workshops in addition to the tenant and rights responsibility workshops. So the question that we're trying to answer is how can we ensure the rental program effectively targets residents with genuine need while also empowering them toward long-term stability and reducing repeat dependence of the program each year. So the performance measures included was approved applications. Currently, we only approve 56% of applications, and I feel like that should be increased to 60 to 70%. Of course, the resource guide distribution, we handed out 550 guides so far, and I would like to increase that by 35%. As I mentioned, the outreach and workshops, we did host a financial literacy workshop. 267 people stated that they were interested. When we did host it, no one showed up, so I would like to increase that attendance by 15%. number of residents served through partner programs. So Erin, with her case management, she received at least 5 cases from partner organizations for rental and tenant rights, in addition to other resources. And then, of course, quarterly meetings with property managers. At least 1 meeting a quarter we would like to have. So we're updating that list so that we can host that meeting each quarter.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to try and make sure we stay on schedule, but anything you have to say about this last slide?
Oh yeah, so I did give you all a copy of the new social work position that we're going to bring on. So as we continue to increase our visibility, we can expect an increase of volume of work. So the new case manager will help with assisting Erin with more case management services, as well as connecting residents, maintaining accurate records and reports related to social work services, and then of course conduct needs assessment and evaluate program effectiveness. But she will work, or he will work closely with Erin.
Excellent. Ms. Buckland, anything you have to say to round this out before we jump into discussion?
Nope.
Okay, easy. Thank you guys for being the guinea pigs. Thanks for going first. And I think that was originally supposed to be HR, so you jumped right in on that and appreciate it. I will say that for future presentations, I think we want to see, what I want to see, I won't speak for my colleagues here, is a little less text on the slides, making sure that what we're being told is not what's on the slides also, and definitely an emphasis on the performance metrics. So saying that too for anybody else listening. All right, let's jump right into discussion so that we can stick on schedule. I will throw out one thing and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. We'll bounce around a little bit among the members of the committee. Hopefully we'll have time to go to other members as well. Alderman Savage, if you're listening, I do have your questions as well. We'll save those for after the committee members ask questions. So I'm going to jump right in. Just one of the things that I have some questions about is this new Harbor Master vehicle. So we were told about that in the highlights. I was wondering if you guys could just explain some more to me what kind of vehicle that is and why it's important to your operation.
Tyler Northfield, Deputy Harbor Master. The 4th vehicle would be some type of hybrid. We don't know exactly. We just applied for funding. We worked with Danny from Central Services to figure out what best suits our needs. The vehicle would be basically to transfer employees back and forth to Truxton Park. Since we have a field office located there, that's where we have all of our boats.
Got it. Okay, I was confused. I thought it was a boat, I assumed. But you are telling me
What's that?
It's a car or a truck.
It's a car. Whatever Danny can find us for that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay,
That
makes
kind of
much more sense. See, I'm glad I asked. Thank you. Alderman Finlayson, do you have questions? You want to?
I do. I'll
Go a little
jump
bit?
right in. May I first ask, where's Miss Bellis, the harborman? I just wonder why she's not here for the.
Miss Bellis is on medical leave, and
Oh,
she had
okay.
she was planning to be here, but she had an appointment that she could not reschedule because we were supposed to go tomorrow, and this was
Okay.
moved to today. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Not that you gentlemen haven't done a wonderful job. I appreciate it, but I'm just used to seeing the directors or the managers, or however we're defining these days. One of my questions, has to do with where you're working. Is the harbor master's office still in the city manager's office? Is it moving to Rexham Park? What's the plan?
Currently, the harbor master's office still reports to the city manager's office and directly to me. There is a proposal to move the office to recreation and parks for 26.
Okay, so we should be hearing about that now if we're talking about this
Yes,
taking
ma'am.
place for 26. And I realize, I think, Tyler, you were here, I'm sure, when the harbor master was in recreation and parks.
Yeah.
And then it
So
was moved, and now
Tyler
it's-
Northfield has
Excuse me.
been designated the acting harbor master, effective last week. And Tim
I'm sorry, say that again.
Tyler Northfield was designated the acting harbor master last week, and because of Beth's absence. And Tim Jacobs was designated the acting deputy harbor master.
Okay, well, my apologies. We don't know these things. So,
Oh, you're good. Just the 30th that goes into effect.
The
That's here.
30th,
Yeah, that's here for right now.
okay. Well, that was really my question about that. I had another question about the proposal, and this goes back to Ms. Giles' presentation about the ferry, because it sounds like the ferry is on hold. However, I think in Public Works, they're making plans for the docking station on the Eastport side. So
Yes.
is everything on hold? Are we moving forward with the docking station without knowing for sure that this ferry is going to take place? I mean, what's the strategy?
So the Fifth Street dock improvements are being made, since that is already a flooding and flood area. It's pretty significant flooding that occurs there on a regular basis, and it's a failing bulkhead. So improvements would need to be made at that street end regardless as a capital improvement project. So they had done a concept design and they had put out for bid an RFP for the improvements to be made there. So regardless of whether the ferry project moves forward, those improvements need to be made at that street end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a document in our binder that shows revenues generated through the Harbor Master's normal operation?
I can, excuse me, I can
Frida?
answer that question for you. If you go to page, it is page 22 in your budget book, you'll see it's general fund summary, general fund revenue detail. Towards the bottom of the page is dock charges and boat show fees. And then this morning I sent out the transparency link, and you can further get more of a granular account detail from that link as well.
Okay, I'm on page 22. You said the bottom of the page
Towards the bottom, it says dock charges and boat show fees.
where it's docking charges and boat fees?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is there a parallel document which shows the expenses?
So the harbor master has its own expense breakdown in the city manager's, I'm sorry, in Wrexham Parks section,
In what section? I'm sorry.
the recreation and park section.
Oh, okay. It's
Page
in Recreation and
114.
Parks now.
Page 114.
Page
Is-
111 in your budget
111.
book.
And this is not a criticism. I'm just trying to get the facts straight. What we generate and what we expend. You can let me know where I can find that.
Yeah, it's on page 111. Their expense breakdown.
And to add to that, if we need more of a detailed breakdown, we can also get that to you as well.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Giles, the federal funding, and you said you tracked, I guess, 25 bills. And this goes back to why we don't have a local lobbyist, because our department heads, you and others, are tracking bills that are appropriate for you. But there was no effort. Well, I don't say there was no effort. We didn't hire local lobbyists who should be the one tracking those bills for us. So you mentioned the fact that your workload is increased. You know, we funded a lobbyist. We didn't fill it, and you're having to do that as all other departments are. So we need to revisit, not to, hinder you from making those steps, but we should have somebody that's doing it.
Yeah.
And so, Ms. Buckland, I guess I'm speaking to you on this behalf, because we funded the position and we're using our staff, taking their time to do what this person should have been hired to do.
Yeah, and I personally get affected by that because I'm the point of contact for the state for the city's fiscal impact statement. So I'm the one who gets all of those and then some of them I'm able to answer myself, and a lot of them I end up enlisting the aid of people like Jackie and others who are more subject matter experts. So I take the point, and I have a personal vested interest in in making sure that gets done.
Well, it's very clear the need is there. So I'll leave that. Thank you.
Can I
Go ahead.
turn over to Alderwoman O'Neill to keep us on track? You
I'm
have
sorry?
questions?
I'm
Do you-
sorry.
I said, could I turn over to Alderwoman O'Neill?
Can I finish my question?
Oh,
first?
sorry. Yeah. I thought you were at a pausing point.
Well, I'm sorry. Are we timing ourselves also? I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to keep us on track. But go ahead.
Okay.
I'll keep us on track.
To Ms. Young, you were talking about community partners. The Adopt a Community, which is near and dear to my heart, has 10 organizations that are already partners with us. How has that benefited your work in trying to get the message out about what the OCS does?
So whenever there's a need, and if Aaron can't assist them just based on our services, then we refer them to organizations that, can continue to assist them.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is you have 10 organizations at the ready that you're supposed to be meeting with every month, right? Who are, truly community partners.
Yeah, I get that. We don't meet every month. If that's something that we're supposed to be doing, then we can try to add that back on. But again, that will probably have to happen once we get the new social worker on board, just because of the capacity that we have, just trying to keep up with the reports in addition to everything else that we have going on. That might have to be something that's pushed to when we get the new social worker on board. But we haven't been meeting with them every month.
The thinking behind this department, this office, was social workers. So we have a lot of other employees within that department who are not social workers. Our interest, I believe, and I know I'm speaking for several of my colleagues, is to have our social workers being the outreach into the community, providing the needs for the community, and other staff doing things like fairs and other events. So we're talking about programming, social workers. We're talking about events, the other staff. So I would hope that our social workers are used in their professional capacity, and that other staff would be used to have meetings and coordinating organizations who are supposed to be meeting. And I think some of them are meeting independently, even though they're supposed to be meeting with you, with the department. So I'll leave that alone. One other question about lighting, and I think, Ms. Giles, this came from you. There are certain organizations, or not organizations, but communities in Annapolis, in my ward particularly, private communities that BG&E has replaced many of the lights. They have replaced some of their own lights. Are they considered part of the plan with this other company to redo all of the lights, or is it going to be just spotty throughout the city?
There he is.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a comprehensive city-wide look at all of our lighting. And so to convert everyone to the most up-to-date LED lighting, and also a feasibility study of acquiring all of our utility poles. So if the city owns them and maintains them themselves, we can realize some significant savings over a period of years.
Excellent.
Okay, so that's good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Alrighty. That was good. So, okay. I'll recognize Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and thank you for the job description. Just double checking, you're talking about adding a social worker, but we had 2 in FY25. Was that one not filled?
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm sorry, Carmen. You said we had
So the
to?
staffing summary says social worker care coordinator 2 for FY25 and 2 for FY26.
But we didn't add them for this year. So we're going to add them for fiscal year 26. Is that what you're asking?
So you didn't have 2 and
No, we didn't have
FY25?
to. I'm sorry.
It's
But it
funded,
was
but it's
budgeted.
vacant. Correct.
Okay. So it was funded but not filled.
Correct. But we are looking to hire now. Everything has been sent to HR. We're just waiting to get their approval so that we can start the process.
So we'll possibly have one hired before July 1.
I'm hoping, yes.
Thank you. That was one question. I had a question about the state lobbyist, but I got that answered. On page 48, and you talk about 56,200 for special events. Can you tell me what those special events are?
Yeah, that's the budget that falls under Felicia Nolan.
Okay.
So it's expenses like fireworks for 4th of July and porta potties for those events, those kinds of expenses. So it's everything related to her that we directly budget for within that special events category. A lot of that ends up being fireworks.
Okay. Thank you. And my last question is the leaf blower program. We allocated funding this year as a SA for $105,000 for the leaf program, and we're asking for another 105. Is 105 our magic yearly number? And Resilience Authority is taking that over, right?
Well, the Resilience Authority is working with they have a contract with a consultant that we are going to tag on to. So 105,000 was what estimate we made to provide discounts to businesses and residents. And then also some administration fees to the consultant that would administer the program for the city. We really, not having implemented the program yet, it was very difficult to determine how much participation they would be, how much the ultimate administration costs would be. And then this consultant we've talked to has come up with some recommendations on the communications and the rollout, and this is adding a little bit to the cost. So I would say, conservatively, $105,000 is going to be needed for the second year. Obviously we haven't implemented yet, so we don't have hard data to go against. So that's a placeholder for us. We would hope by the third year, there's more gas power leaf blowers that have been purchased already, especially by the businesses, and we would not need to have as many vouchers, and the administration of it wouldn't cost as much by the third year. But I think it's safe to say we need at least $105,000 for the second year.
Okay. And then I'm going to say one last note and let it go on after that, but right now we're saying if you see somebody violating the ban, you're supposed to email.
You can email. We have the
That is so ineffective.
That's what we have right now. But we this week we hope to get together with you and discuss. We've had many complaints especially about landscaping businesses violating the new regulation. So we do need to come up with something a bit better. We hope to hire the environmental associate very, very soon. Now that we got past the CNC study, so that person can help us with enforcement.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. So just to be clear, that is new money. So we will, if we pass this as proposed, we will have put $210,000 towards
Correct.
Electric leaf blower. Got it. Thank you. Some high level questions. So this is not strictly within the city manager's budget, but I'm hoping the city manager or maybe the budget manager can help address it. It is overarching. Last year, as I believe, we had our revenues exceed our expenses by about $1 million. This year, my read of the budget is that the expenses are going to exceed revenues by much more than that, $15 million. Am I correct in that understanding? And if so, could somebody explain to me what's changed?
Okay, do you want to?
Sure. So if you're looking at page 17, which shows general fund revenues at 114.9 and total expenses at 122.2, the delta there is one-time funds and capital reserve. So we do have a balanced budget where our revenues and our expenditures they match.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another?
No, I think that makes sense. Alderman Savage, was your question related to that, or you had something else?
No, I just wanted to get in the queue for my own questions.
Got it. Thank you. I had, I'd just like, and then I will turn it over to the other members. I would love to hear some more about this harbor master change. Why is it being proposed after we just changed it back? And then I'm also curious how it would happen. Is it just happening in the budget, or do we need legislation? And if that is the case that we need legislation, then why do we swap Harbor Master into the Rec and Parks budget, but we didn't swap AIPPC out of it? So, handful of questions there, but generally, why are we making this move?
The relationship of the harbor master to the rest of the city structure is not enumerated in code to the best of my knowledge, so I don't believe it requires legislation. No. Wrong. It does? Okay.
Title 2.
Title 2.
Let's let
Okay.
the acting city manager keep going.
Yeah, no, but that. So my apologies. In terms of why that decision, obviously the harbor master was in recreation for a while. This is just me talking. The harbor master has a number of different features that there are some features that align with a couple of different departments within the city. There are some elements of it that are compliance related, similar to the inspection regime that sits within planning and zoning. There's a strong element of what they do that's around use of and utilization of a city resource. Similar to Rec and Parks, where there's parks and facilities within that we want to make sure that people go to, utilize, have strong customer service. There's a strong element of that also sits within Harbor Master in relation to city facilities there. So I think that there are potentially several different places where Harbor Master sort of quote unquote fits. Recreation Park is one of them. I'm not sure you might have more insight into that.
I could add that they have been in with recreation parks. They have, the harbor master's office has been in various different departments, I believe planning and zoning, public works, different times. There's an enforcement part of them that they could belong to the police department. They're almost like HR or IT. They're very different. And as the compensation and classification study consultant said, they're a unicorn. They're so different from any other department. It's not quite sure where they fit. And that's one of the reasons why they were brought to, many reasons. That apparently was not working out in Rec and Parks at one time. And I was asked if I would take on responsibility for managing the harbor master's office. It seemed like it'd be a good, just to stand alone and report directly to the city manager's office. There were a number of issues with Maritime Museum and Watermark and the boat show, and some legal issues to handle as well, concerning mooring balls and other things that needed to be worked out. And overall, the desire was to make work on enforcement and making the harbor master's office less about enforcement and more about the customer experience, which I think since we've been working together the last 2.5, 3 years, that has worked out very well. There's been incredible improvements. Their revenue is great. They're a great team that works well together. I've gotten to know all of their strengths and how they work together very well, and established all the relationships with Watermark and the boat show and all of our lease holders we've had. We established a number of commercial leases for the very first time. We were very busy with that last year. And it's been very good for them to work with me on the ferry project, which is a resilience project, but it's also a transportation project. And it's also a harbor master project. We've spent a significant amount of time together and will continue on the ferry project. And also, it's not just the city ferry, it's the county ferry, and also the Chesapeake Bay ferry. The other project we've invested a lot of time in, which has been helpful to have it at the city manager level, is this whole discussion around house barges and houseboats. And now we have a task force to discuss house barges and houseboats, which is being led by the harbor master's office with the support of the city manager's office. And I think that's critical and crucial because it's highly politicized and very sensitive. And I've been very involved in helping get that underway. So, they're almost like a standalone office that reporting to the city manager's office makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure how this new designation came about. I just learned about it last Tuesday. And I just shared
Okay.
it with the harbor master's office just recently.
Well, thank you. We are at time here today, so we're going to take our 15-minute break, and then we will return. No, I think we're going to stick with our schedule as written, and this, I think, will be a good reminder of why we need to stay on time going forward.
Mr. Chair, will there be another opportunity for our colleagues to ask questions?
Yeah, I believe the plan is that there are opportunities for them to send them in to the department directors. Is that correct, Mr. Trudeau?
That's correct. There's a form that can be filled out for additional questions.
Last year, we had a general sheet that folks were able to ask additional questions and then also ask follow-up questions. I found that to be helpful, and that will be there again. So I will ask. Our goal is to be able to answer questions. If you want to ask those, you can ask them there. You can reach out. Either one is fine. Our goal is to make sure you have the information you need to be able to engage fully with the material in front of you.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask that those questions and answers be shared with all of us. I think they all have value if everyone can hear the questions and learn the answers. I know it's important to stay on time, but it's really important to get the information.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'd be great to make sure, unless anyone feels differently about their questions, so we can all see those.
Mr.
All right.
Chair, I'll submit, I'll add quickly that we will come before you with an ordinance to adjust section 212, which does move the harbor master.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mr. Trudeau. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to my colleagues, and apologies we were not able to get to additional questions beyond the committee for this one. Let's hope that we are more on that with IT. We'll see you. I guess I'll entertain a
Chair.
motion. Yeah.
Just a quick question. I mean, I believe the meeting started late, so did you factor in that time?
I did factor that in, and we're ending a little bit late early. We're ending a little bit late too, but we're trying to get back on track. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to recess for 12 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting returning to order at 10:45 a.m. on April 21st, 2025. Mr. Packman, thanks for joining us. Happy to have you here and hear a little bit about our Integrated Technology Solutions budget.
Thank you for having me. Brian Paquin, ITS Director.
Don't worry, you don't have to stop talking already.
That was quick. All right, we're going to dive right in the interest of time. So our highlights, we've got not formalized divisions, but we've got different sections within our department. We'll start with GIS, our Geographic Information Systems. So beginning in this current fiscal year, we've contracted with a third-party vendor. A big part of what our GIS team does, a team consisting of 2 people, is all of our GIS systems were self-hosted on premises. We have been in the progress of migrating those to a third-party company that'll do all of our maintenance, upgrades. They're hosted in the cloud, and that's going to save a lot of time and allow our GIS staff to be more project-oriented instead of maintenance-oriented. So that's well underway, and most of our end users will start experiencing that new platform sometime in June. We've also developed a fire department dashboard to help them summarize and display their calls for service in a more user-friendly way. We've created and distributed a new ward map in anticipation of this upcoming election, and that'll be released in just the next couple of weeks. We've cataloged all the available survey monument cards, including photographs of those monuments, and incorporated them into a GIS layer. Comprehensive map of our CIP program for the finance department, which makes that a lot more visually accessible than just a running list and with street addresses and things of that nature. And just kind of as a general rule, our GIS team's really good and continues to be really good at advocating for growth in GIS adoption and leveraging that data across all of our city departments. Our operations and web team, so beginning with operations, and those are our technicians and our network engineers, and truthfully myself also. So we're continuing to roll out multi-factor authentication for as many cities' logins and services as we can. I mean, that's really an important step. I'm sure you've noticed it in your personal life with your banking and your email and things of that nature. Multi-factor authentication to make sure it's really you. Passwords aren't enough these days. So we're well underway with that, and that's an effort that's going to continue into FY26. Our cybersecurity awareness program is extremely important, and we're really starting to see a little bit better traction this year with the newer product that we've rolled out. We were hovering in the 40s percentile of participation across all city employees. And in this day and age, you know, with your layered threat detection, your end users are really the biggest vulnerability right now. You know, we can protect the endpoint in numerous ways. We can protect the edge in different ways, but your users are that attack vector that these guys are really going after these days. So educating people with timely data, you know, our partner with our cybersecurity education produces new content every 30 days, and it's very timely. You know, they're going to be talking about attacks that our users may have heard about on the news, and educating them and giving them a little more in-depth detail than what they're going to get on the news on how they do it, things to be looking out for. So we're continuing to get better participation. I want to thank our other department heads as well for really, you know, pushing their staff to participate. And then in line with, you know, a stated goal that we've had for several years now is we're continuing to virtualize our data center, which is taking, in the old days that you had, a new application got a server. It went in the rack, and that's what that server did. So part of our virtualization is that the on-premises version of our virtualization efforts is to take those servers and condense them. Instead of having a rack full of servers that need electricity and cooling and things of that nature, we stack them all in one box that run numerous virtual servers, and that really reduces your carbon footprint, not just from how much electricity that the server itself is eating, but how much cooling capacity that you need in the data center and things of that nature. Our web and social media team always engaged with the departments to try to keep the content fresh, providing critical information when needed, working with the public information officer, not just from the mayor's office, but from police and fire, when there's a crisis, to get that information out there in a timely manner. And anybody that knows our webmaster knows that she doesn't really ever stop working. She's always available. So she's really good at that. A big effort within that portion of our department has been to continue to work with city staff that provide content to the website, make sure that it is visually appealing, fits in with the context of the rest of the website. And, even something as simple as checking it for typos and making sure that the content that lands on the web represents the city in a positive way. You're going to hear a lot about ADA compliance and our efforts in that area for the remainder of this presentation. So we've got literally tens, hundreds of thousands of pages of PDFs on our website that have been created over the course of the last 2 decades. A lot of those are not accessible for visually impaired folks and otherwise. We've taken on a very ambitious project to begin to remediate those, especially the more recent, more pertinent ones, such as things like the budget book and things of that nature, to make sure that all of our citizens can access that data. Does that mean that I've been talking too much? Another stride that we've made in that area in this current fiscal year is that every city council agenda and committee agenda that hits the website is available both in PDF and a full ADA compliant web format. So that's been a big effort from our team over there, and they've been highly successful at that. Our analysis team, our 2 largest products that we maintain and support are our enterprise permitting and licensing program. A lot of people know that as EnerGov. So some high spots there in this fiscal year that we're in. The tax remittance module has gone live. Our taxi cab owner and operator licenses are also live. And a lot of times when you take these modules online, it's not just the technical aspect of it, it's the end user training aspect of it to make sure that they're using it appropriately and that their interactions with the public are positive once we adopt these new modules. Short-term rental licenses and fee collection was kind of bifurcated across 2 products, host compliance and EP&L, and now through a ton of effort, we are 100% within EP&L now, and host compliance is no longer public-facing in that regard for licensing and fee collection. The product that a lot of folks know as Munis has been renamed by Tyler Tech to Enterprise ERP. One thing that we are in the midst of now and we anticipate being done by June 30 will be decentralization of invoice entry. And what that means in plain English is currently finance staff receives every invoice, scans it, processes it. We're going to decentralize that, push some of that responsibility for the actual acceptance and entry of those invoices into ERP to the administrative staff of the departments, which should hopefully ease a little bit of the burden on finance. And also, this is something that the departments want. They want the onus to be on them. We're going to get this invoice. We're going to get it processed. We're going to get these vendors paid in a timely manner. So that's a really nice achievement. And then vendor ACH is just simply electronic payments, allowing our vendors to pay us electronically. Imagine that, and not have to take a hard check. So that has been a little more complicated than we had anticipated when we set about that. The technology's there. We're working with Wells Fargo to make sure that the data that we are sending them and the data we get back from them, works for both systems.
Can I one clarify?
Yes, sir.
Are you telling me that right now the city cannot accept payment electronically at all?
No, just from the vendors, from our accounts receivable department. And yeah, I do realize that that seems a little shocking. But yeah, we're well on our way with it. That should be basically any minute now. But no, we accept electronic payment for all sorts of other stuff. All right, so a newer product is NeoGov. And there's two aspects of that. So what's called Core HR is live now. The Attract recruitment module, which works with our job postings. It has full integration with govjobs.com. That portion's been live and is currently being utilized by Human Resources. And then the Inside Applicant Tracking System, which I took some notes so I don't butcher this. I don't use it every day. But that's got all online applicant tracking, pre-employment testing and screening. That's all wrapped up within that module, taking over from things that were cumbersome, a lot of times still paper-driven processes. So that's a big step forward. And that full HRIS suite with NeoGov will be live by June 30. Payroll and time and attendance is more on the finance side of the house there. That's going to be, I have another piece of paper for that. That will have full GL integration with the existing ERP system, fully online time and attendance for our departments. And there's a tax compliance package in there that should be a big assistance to the finance department. And then finally on this slide, Telestaff is time and attendance for our police and fire. As you know, if anybody that's been involved with their payroll rules and their union negotiations, that's a highly specialized, very unique situation, more so than, with our other departments with regards to overtime rules and overtime call-outs and things of that nature. So Telestaff is a very highly specialized product that deals with those sorts of situations for our emergency services. So that's fire department's live now. Police are actually doing parallel time entry with their existing system in Telestaff, and we're anticipating by the end of May that they'll have cut over and be using Telestaff.
I just want you to know, Mr. Packard, you got 4 minutes left.
Wow. Okay. So looking forward to 26. So two of our enhancement requests, $75,000 for contractual services to help our web team to further train our departments on how to produce accessible web content, and to also further assist in the remediation of some of the existing content. $70,000 for an updated IT strategic plan. We haven't had an IT strategic plan done since 2010, and a lot of what was suggested within that has not been implemented. So we're not going to try to work with a 15-year-old document. We're going to have a new strategic plan done that's going to help us plan for reorganization of the department, new positions, new directions, and how we want to focus our efforts moving forward. The incoming administration will get a full website redesign as part of their transition team in their first year on board, and that's just kind of a tradition that we've had. More MFA, more security enhancements across city systems. That's pretty self-explanatory. Further virtualization, we've discussed that. And then we've also discussed the new GIS platform in the cloud. We'll be getting more features and more users live on that one. We're going with a new help desk and service desk ticketing system that will provide not only better service to our customers, they can open tickets all right from an app on their PC or mobile device. And that's also going to help us do better data gathering for our upcoming performance measures that we're going to be going with in FY26. And then some of you may know, some of you may not. Our department manages the city security CIP, which is surveillance cameras, card access, things of that nature, and modernizing and improving that and building the infrastructure that it rides on. So we'll continue to do that in 26. I know this is a very busy slide, and I know we're running short on time. There's some data in here that didn't make it into the proposed budget book that I can provide to you guys separately. This slide obviously is available in the drive. But the overarching message here is that the measures that we have put forth for 25, we're doing really well on. but we're very much looking forward to working with the assistant city manager to develop some things that are a little more easy for folks to digest, that maybe have a little more meaning to a lay person, and really kind of reflect the job that we're doing in-house a little bit better. And then the budget changes that are affecting our performance moving forward is getting the training and uptake of the NeoGov system, make sure everybody's using that properly. We've got some add-ons in there that affect the contractual services bottom line. 2 products called Test Genius and FSPI. When we have some more time, you feel free to ask me about this after I'm done. But that is some really cool police and fire training stuff that I'm happy to discuss. And then, I'm sorry, Guide CX. I was speaking to Ross about this a little while ago. We are going to formalize our software onboarding process from, hey, I need this Chrome browser plugin, to we want a new ERP or permitting and licensing software, something that would obviously be a multi-year effort.
Let's put 4 more minutes on the clock, please.
Thank you. So we are going to formalize that process. All good.
As if poor Brian wasn't nervous enough already. Like, come on.
So yeah, that from the smallest to the largest, there's going to be a process. It's got workflow so that the stakeholders and IT both know what their responsibilities are, and that should greatly improve how we get through onboarding software systems, specifically the larger ones. And this was kind of, I took as the free-for-all slide. So I wanted to, obviously, on top of mind for everybody are the cyber attacks, not only with some of our neighbors, but nationwide. Everybody in this room probably has heard about what happened in Anne Arundel County. Baltimore City got hit again. It wasn't a shutdown of their system per se, but more of a social engineering attack that led to some fraud. And in Kansas City, they ended up, having to take some of their systems down again. End user as an attack vector, phishing email. So the question that you may be asking yourself, and that Mrs. Finlayson asks me every year, is kind of how do we leverage the budget that you guys are considering to mitigate the risk? So I spoke a little bit earlier about the layered approach to cybersecurity. That's the technical side of things. And then the cybersecurity awareness program, we've talked about that pretty thoroughly at this point as well. So in our proposed budget, there's a dedicated cybersecurity position, and what that position will entail is not only advising leadership on developing cybersecurity policy, but also assisting to enforce those policies, holding end users accountable, holding ourselves accountable. So that when we stand these policies up, we're adhering to them. And then an additional network engineer position, having more geeks on hand is never a bad thing. That position will work closely with our existing network engineer. Again, edge firewall, that's a protective measure. Making sure that, everything's up to date, that's a protective measure. So that'll be a big help to us. And
thank you. You beat the city manager's team on being on time, so I don't know if that's a raise or a bonus or what, but we appreciate it.
I appreciate the extra 4 minutes.
I just wanted to say briefly, this question that you had at the end here, how does ITS use its budget to mitigate? How do any of our departments use the resources we're giving them to meet their performance objectives is the question that I want to see answered in these presentations. So thank you for answering that there.
Yes, sir.
Very briefly, is Alderman Savage still with us? Yeah. Okay. Alderman Savage, I'm going to say if he's with us, I want to turn it over to him to make a very brief point about performance metrics before we go further.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it was more towards the city manager's office, but I just think it's important as it underlies all of these budget deliberations for each department. But we have not yet received the legislation that's required in the code to adopt performance standards for us for fiscal year 26. and we're all supposed to receive. The departments are supposed to send those in by January 15th every year. So I think of the future, I want to bring it up just because I think for next fiscal year, city manager's office really should be prioritizing getting those performance standards refined and to us for approval.
Yes. I had spoken with the audit committee and clearly misunderstood the process. So that is definitely on my radar for next year.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'm going to ask you one question, Mr. Packman, and then I'll turn it over to Alderwoman O'Neill to ask some questions, Alderwoman Finlayson to ask some questions, and then I really do think we can make sure we leave time for the colleagues on this one. My overarching question is, it appears, and I know you and I had a conversation about this, but it appears as though we're adding, I think, 3 positions to ITS this year. And I think you had alluded to me that there's maybe a little bit more to that than how it looks on paper. So could you just give us some additional context and again, talk about the budgetary implications of that?
Absolutely. So there's really kind of 2 things going on at once here. We've got, we're currently working with Human Resources to develop some additional career ladders within our department that weren't included in the class and comp study. Specifically, the IT specialist position and the network engineer position. So outside of that, we're also looking to develop this dedicated cybersecurity position. That being said, you'll notice that for a department that appears, at least in that little table, to be adding 3 positions, that the total salary and benefits number isn't going up accordingly. Basically, what we want to do is be positioned for the outcome of initially short-term the career ladder opportunity that we're hoping to have in front of us for both competitive, which would be, non-competitive promotion, which would be within the ladder, and then potential competitive promotion or higher when we're looking at moving or adding, say, that network engineer position, right? So we currently don't have that. If we were going to promote from within, that would be, again, someone moving to a different job class. And the way I understand it, that would have to be a competitive promotion. Really what you see is not a net gain of bodies necessarily in the short term within FY26. The second part of that is the strategic plan is obviously going to have a series of recommendations about our staffing, both organizationally and potentially additional bodies. That would be far, far later in FY26. I mean, with dollar amount involved, it's probably going to have to go to RFP, which is going to take time, and then selection, and then obviously the study itself. That takes time. A good one takes time, right? They're thorough. There's a lot of information gathering there, preparation of the report, and then sorry, I keep saying obviously, but then we would share those findings with council and try to determine where we want to go next. So while in that table it looks like 3 bodies being added, it's really just in preparation and being able to react to the outcomes of both the career ladder and the strategic plan, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Bill. Alderwoman O'Neill, you have questions you want to ask? Okay, Alderwoman Finlayson.
I'm accused of that on a regular basis. Yes, ma'am.
I spend my time trying to figure out what those acronyms are before I can understand what you're saying. So
Happy to provide some clarity if you would like.
bear with me. ADA compliance. How is it that functions? Your goal is to make sure that our council meetings are in compliance. So how is someone sitting at home getting the information?
So it's not so much the meetings themselves, right? It's the information contained within the website, and there is a nationally accepted format for the creation of online content, so that a screen reading software tag images with a description. So as a screen reader moves through, it will know, hey, this is a picture of a fence or what have you. So there's a nationally recognized standard for ADA compliance, specifically for the visually impaired, for web content. And frankly, we're playing a little bit of catch up, but the steps that need to be taken are twofold. One, you got to make sure that the stuff that you're creating and posting currently is compliant. Remediation is another part of that. A third part of that is to not necessarily treat the website like the National Archives, right? There's a lot of stuff on there that's outside of retention policy. We need to adhere to that retention policy and remove outdated content that we're not legally required to provide, and that will greatly reduce the level of effort and expense required to remediate the website.
Is there any vocal opportunities for the hearing impaired?
I'm sorry, could you clarify that?
If there's a person that is hearing impaired, is there a translation of verbal communication? Is something read?
So I believe that we have a captioning service in place for all of our live council and committee broadcasts already in place. I hope I'm not misspeaking on that, but I believe that's already in place. And I think that's what we're talking about. Is that correct?
You can. Okay, Julian's just confirmed.
Thank you.
I
was really hoping I wasn't telling a lie there.
I'm particularly interested in how you access the short-term rentals and the time and attendance on NeoGov.
So the short-term rentals in what used to be known as EnerGov, and that's now EP&L, Enterprise Permitting and Licensing. That is, yeah. So our application processes now in one place. For a while, new applications were being processed in EnerGov. We'll just call it EnerGov because that's what everybody's used to hearing. New applications were being processed in EnerGov, but renewals were being processed in the older system. And that was just basically running in parallel while we moved everything. And that was a long manual process done by city staff. But yeah, that bullet point's just highlighting that we're in one system now in an attempt to reduce confusion amongst our constituents, that this is the place for applications and renewals moving forward.
And you're working with planning and zoning? I mean, it sits in their wheelhouse.
That's correct. Yes, not only planning and zoning, but finance as well.
Okay. And lastly, are there any items, you know what this question is, that are enhancements, that are not included in your mayor's budget?
No, ma'am, we're thrilled with how we're positioned moving into FY26. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Packer, could you talk a little bit more about how you structure contracts with these all these different enterprise systems that you guys are managing? Right, we've heard about quite a few different ones. What does the process for buying them look like? And do you have a philosophy around sort of like when the money should be going out the door? Are you thinking about it more like a service where it's flat? Are you thinking about it more like you're building a product in which you put a lot of money out at the beginning and then you have a little bit out on the tail end? Like, could you just talk some more about the contracting to buy these products?
So stop me if I'm not understanding, but I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. So in this, I'll refer back to like the server thing, right? Where you used to buy a standalone server for a standalone application, right? Not only with that regard have things changed, but we've gotten to a point, it seems, in the marketplace where you no longer buy software, you rent it, right? Software as a service. One of our line items you'll notice a fairly significant change in is our software account, where we've gone from somewhere I think shy of 10,000 to 80,000 for FY26. That reflects two things. One, because software as a service is so prevalent, we used to just drop it all in miscellaneous contractual services, but that's not really an accurate representation of what we're paying for. We're paying for the software. So they've been moved out of contractual services and into this software line. And then the other thing that reflects is this software as a service model. Things like that you may be familiar with, like Office 365 and the Adobe suite, right? We're no longer buying persistent licenses of either of those. We don't buy it once, use it for 5 years, it gets worn out, it gets outdated, and then we go buy another version of the software that our end users get to use for 5 years until they, oh my God, this is 5 years old, this feature's missing, et cetera. So specifically speaking to O365 and the Adobe Cloud, you're always in the most recent version. And that just becomes a persistent year-over-year known cost, rather than, oops, this year I got to slide in a $40,000 or $50,000 enhancement request to make a one-time purchase of 400 licenses of this particular piece of software. So that's where that paradigm shift has come. I hope that's somewhat addressing what you're asking me.
Yeah, I think it helped to answer my question. It also helped me realize maybe I should ask a slightly different question. So in both ways, it was helpful. Thank you. Are there any additional questions from my colleagues on the committee? If not, then I would turn it to our other colleagues. Alderman Arnett, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, it's appropriate we're on the thank you page because as one who regularly wears out the IT help staff, I want to thank them and you for those services. I have one point that I'd like to bring up. I got 2 text messages today, and I get it all the time. No one can figure out how to get to the live meeting. And I think there needs to be on the web page a big red button. I know you're supposed to go to YouTube instead, and you can go into iLegislate if you have the courage to do that and find the video section there. But it's very hard for people to find where they go to hear all of our meetings. I'm delighted they even want to hear from us, but but it really, in terms of an enhancement or a message to the web staff, we've got to make that so much clearer on how to get there.
One way that I would address that, and in one way, shape, or form, I always end up bringing this up during these finance committee meetings, is those sorts of concerns. Like me personally, the web team, the COA TV team, the PIO, we would much rather make some time with you or whomever and meet about it and figure out ways to address it before you're hearing about it multiple times a day, every day. Like these sorts of issues, I want everyone on council to know, pick a time, we sit down. I love having you guys come by my office. We wouldn't talk as much if we didn't enjoy the interactions, Ross, but Alderman Arnett. No, I would encourage you to make time, not only with me. We're all very familiar with the COA TV team and how accommodating they are. Things of that nature. If we can make things better, I mean that's kind of what our department exists for, right? We facilitate the work of the other departments. And if something is an impediment to your constituents getting to the information they want, I want to hear about it. I truly do.
Alderman Pindell-Charles, you got any questions? No? Okay. I did have a couple other relatively small ones. On the strategic plan training, strategic planning sounds wonderful. Can you talk some more about what exactly that money is going to? Is it going to sort of a facilitator or? Yeah, so generally speaking, in 2010, I was here, but I was more of a worker bee. I participated in one of the interviews or a series of the interviews. I don't have a great recollection of it, but we're going to review, it's going to go to RFP. We're going to review multiple proposals. Upon looking back upon the 2010 one, albeit somewhat briefly, to prep for this, one of the things that I noticed that it was such a large percentage of the expense of that back then was T&L, travel and lodging, right? There was no Teams, there was no Google Meet. And because it was a fairly long and involved process, they were sending a lot of people here and they were spending a lot of time here.
we want to avoid that obviously now. I mean, if they want to make an on-site visit to see the data center or see our working environment, or if they want to make suggestions about our working space and they want to see it in person, like that's fine. But the overwhelming majority of what they're doing, and to be clear, a lot of what they do is interviewing departments not named ITS to talk about delivery of services, efficiencies, how we're addressing their needs. A lot of that will hopefully be able to be done virtually, and more of it can go into the actual research and development of the report. And I apologize, I don't have more specificity on that yet, but we'll learn more as it goes out to RFP, and I'd be happy to share that with you guys if you're interested at the time.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett, we were talking this morning in the audit committee about those changes to the financial system, and we heard a little bit about that from Brian. Do you feel like all of the questions we were raising this morning have gotten answered about that?
Somewhat, I have to admit, I had an offline discussion with the director, and I think it's a deeper, more complicated topic. Probably most appropriate to bring it up when we have the briefing from the Finance Committee, but it does seem like it's multiple issues. One, and Director Dickinson spoke to this, they never have been able to get up to staff. It reminds me a lot of APD. And maybe if they were, that it wouldn't be such a problem. But the AFR is always at least 200 days late. And part of that is staff issues. And part of it is maybe something where we can do something to more automate, apply programming to the process of moving from the Munis ledger to the accounts. I've exhausted my expertise in those statements, but it is a very important thing, and it's required by the state. It's required by the Gadsby federal accounting rules, and it has been that way since Alderwoman Finlayson and I got here in 2007. It's never, ever, ever been on time. I thought maybe it was because the code was over ambitious, but it turns out no, it's really there's some structural and programming problems that are going to have to address that. But we are going to have to address it, and I think when we hear from finance, that'll be the best time to sort that out.
If I may, I think that this actually dovetails pretty nicely into, it's not a massive line item in our budget request, but I spoke about it briefly on one of the slides, the performance measure slide. This new project management and software onboarding system and process that we're implementing, I really believe that it's going to improve stakeholder engagement between the IT department and the individual departments. Whereas if there truly is a shortcoming somewhere within, obviously I don't control business processes within the individual departments, but if there truly is a shortcoming within one of the software suites or even a module within a specific software suite, this is going to give them a platform to feed it into this system and at least begin the discussion of what the appropriate next steps are. Is this truly a shortcoming within the software that could be better addressed by a different product? Is it a business process issue? This product and this new way of doing things within our department, I truly believe will improve that and give us a more open platform for discussion with the stakeholders within the other department.
I got two hopefully easy questions for you, and then I'll be done. In one of your performance measures, I just noticed, not just right now, when I was looking over this earlier this weekend, I noticed you've got the software uptime percentage, and then you've got hours of unplanned downtime. And software, and then they both by themselves seem like really good metrics. But I was noticing for either software or server uptime percentage, if your metric for that is 99.99%, and then hours of unplanned downtime is less than 12, even if we had 11 hours of unplanned downtime, then that would mean that we're not in compliance with the benchmarks for the other two. So I think maybe just, I guess what I'm saying is I think if you feel like the server uptime percentage and software uptime percentage benchmarks are appropriate, maybe the hours of unplanned downtime should be somewhat lower. I'd be
Right,
curious
because
to hear.
I think what you're thinking of is the maintenance windows and things like that, right? Well, versus for software uptime versus unplanned downtime,
Right.
right? One thing I do want to reinforce is that these are still very much a work in progress between our staff and the assistant city manager, looking for a little guidance on these things. And I would look more at the description of the metric versus the 99.9% number that's in there, kind of more as a placeholder for now. I would like to tell you, and it is my sincere hope, that by the time the actual adopted budget book's done, that those will have been refined and that you'll have something far more permanent and concrete at that time.
Great. Yeah, part of what I'm pointing out there is just 12 hours out of the year is more than 0.01% already. So just something to think about.
I'll do that math a little better by the time the final budget book comes out, sir.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about is I noticed in flipping through here that a phrase I didn't see anywhere was artificial intelligence. And that is something that is a hot topic in information technology these days. It's a hot topic just about anywhere you look. I've seen some really amazing initiatives in Pennsylvania state government, where our new director of central services just came from, and they were able to see huge time savings. So whether it is a performance metric or it is something that maybe there's some contract we need, but it's something that I would love to hear how the department is thinking about more. And in particular, the way we talk about it in my day job is that it should be an expectation that our employees, maybe not every employee, maybe not if you're fixing well, that's a bad example. Maybe not every employee, but the vast majority of employees, I think it should be an expectation that they are using artificial intelligence tools on a weekly basis. And I'd love to, again, whether it's a contract or a performance metric, whatever, love to have ITS thinking about how you guys can be part of making that happen.
Absolutely.
I guess that wasn't a question.
It's all good, man.
Yes, Alderman Finlayson.
I do have one more question. On page 64, under fiscal year 2025 accomplishments, you have none. Now I know that it's been demonstrated, and obviously,
Yeah, no, that's the director of the department missing a deadline, and I do sincerely apologize for that. That'll be updated in the adopted.
well, I think
book.
it's pretty clear what your accomplishments have been.
Thank you
so,
very much.
Nothing is taken away from your presentation. Thank you.
Last call for question. Oh, Alderman Arnett.
This is a point of discussion which we'll take the opportunity to talk with you, but I have been talking with the city manager and the chair of the finance committee. These performance measures are basically output measures, and maybe that's fine for the performance measures, but for these kinds of meetings, and you did it in your presentation, outcome measures are really what the council needs to know. Not only successes in outcomes, the impact, but also shortfalls that didn't allow you to achieve the optimal outcomes, or the ones that you're shooting for. So frankly, I think we're a long way from having a final performance measure system in the city, but yours are very, very explicitly outputs, and we need, from a budget theory point of view, we need to improve outcomes.
Yeah, we had a dedicated slide in the presentation last year of places where we whiffed, right? And just in the consideration of time, and not, that slide was already busy enough. But yeah, I understand what you're saying insofar as it's very easy to paint a rosy picture if you're only giving the positive outcomes. And no, we don't hit on everything. So no, your point is well taken, sir.
Generic point for the city.
For what it's worth, I thought ITS did a better job on having him be more like outcomes than some of the other ones that I've read. But okay, well, we can agree to disagree. All right, last call on questions. Anybody?
Rob?
If Alderman Savage is still here, I think he would have texted me if he had something. Nope. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here with us, Director Packman. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Appreciate it.
And we can come over and get our phones connected.
Just let me know you're coming. You know we're always there for you.
And so we had on our schedule that we would adjourn at 11:45 and reconvene at noon and go over those supplemental appropriations. I believe we asked Public Works to be here at 11:45. So I will say not Public Works who has supplemental appropriation.
Oh,
Right. It's from Public Works. Yeah. So they'll be here. So at this time, I'd like us, if my colleagues are amenable, to adjourn for 15 minutes. We'll come back at 11:45 when Public Works should be here, go over our 2 supplemental appropriations, and then adjourn for the day. Recess. Sorry, not adjourn. Is there a motion to recess until 11:45?
move to recess for 15 minutes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Meeting is called back into order at 11:46 a.m. We're going to review our two supplemental appropriations, starting with this one from the Department of Public Works. And at this time, I'd invite our director, Mr. Burvogel, and whoever else from Public or whoever from Public Works need to be here. Okay. He's just silently judging you, that's all. So thanks for coming here today. I know we were going to wait until the Public Works presentation for this one, but I understand we needed to get it done sooner rather than later. So if you wouldn't mind just explaining to us briefly what we're talking about, and the total number is 840,000 here, or the total number is 420,000?
420,000.
Okay.
That's correct, 420,000.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
I know, I gotta get really close. I'm a little out of practice with that. So this is for the fuel island and on Spa Road that we use to fuel our fire trucks and other equipment. The tanks are currently 33 years old, and the insurance companies are increasing the deductible amounts, so they need to be replaced. Bid costs have come in higher than what was allotted, and so therefore we're requesting the additional $400,000 for the tank install.
And is this on Spa Road? That's where the fuel island is?
Yes, it's the
Yeah.
fuel station. So currently we inspect those like every week for leaks.
Yes.
So hopefully this will reduce that.
Everybody in the city gets the note about the inspection, right? Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
All right. Any questions?
I do, Mr. Chair. Is it being moved or just being repaired?
So the existing tanks are underground. Those underground tanks will be removed, and then above ground tanks will be installed on the same property right next to the shed area. There will be fencing and bollards around those tanks to prevent access from the public.
So we're going from underground tanks to above ground tanks.
Yes, ma'am.
And the tanks will be fenced in, you said.
Yes, ma'am.
And they'll be on the same property.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have another question, and maybe it's for Mr. Vogel. Why is it that we are not moving all of this over to the Public Works property? We built a wonderful
To
new
enhance-
building for Public Works, and it doesn't seem to be utilized for all of Public Works.
Bert Vogel, Public Works Director. So you're talking about the new facility at 39 Hudson, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, a couple of problems with using that site for fueling. One, it's not in a very central location. And the second is it's a very tight site. Really barely enough room for the functions that we have there.
Okay, I'm thinking ahead because, there's all kinds of proposals to develop that property. The 7 acres that we have sitting there. And all of those proposals would include, I believe, moving those tanks and that gas station, for lack of better description.
Yes, ma'am. Ultimately, the tanks would have to be relocated. The city needs to find a location that can have a fire truck access it. Specifically, a ladder truck needs to be able to drive into the facility and drive out of this facility. Right now at 39 Hudson, a fire truck cannot go in and make any kind of turns, despite the fact that we have a lack of room. So currently we need to find a location. The tanks that we're requesting are a robust tank, and they have a reduced setback on them, which would allow the city flexibility to relocate those tanks at the time we find a new location. They're also an in high demand tank. So if the city chooses to use something different down the line in the design process, we have the opportunity to actually resell those tanks.
Thank you. So when we moved to Hudson Street, and we thought that that was a better location for Public Works, but it sounds like it's not adequate. Hudson Street is a pretty wide street. Is it the end of Hudson Street that narrows it to the point where our fire equipment can't access it?
It's the site within the Public Works property at Hudson Street that's problematic. It's not Hudson Street itself. It's once you make the turn and try to go back in where there's a lot of other activity.
So is there property surrounding our property there that could be used to, I'm just trying
I mean,
to
I think
figure-
it's you know, the topic you've brought up is something we've thought about a lot, which is what happens if the Spa Road development moves forward and we have to relocate those tanks. So as Allison mentioned, a primary requirement is make these tanks movable, right? So we buy them, we install them, hook them up to the existing pumps, and then at some point in time, if we find another if we actually have to move them, and that's not definite yet, but we obviously hope that will happen, then we will need to find another site for them. That's an absolute necessity, or another way of fueling our vehicles if we were to close down the fuel operation entirely.
Okay, thank you. And so above ground tanks, fenced in, have the greatest level of security. I mean, is there any opportunities for any sort of anything? And I guess I know you don't have the answer to that question because
No, but I will say that these tanks are bulletproof. So
They're what?
They're bulletproof. So
They're
I'm
bulletproof?
not I'm not sure how more secure we can make them other than locking them so that people can't access except for our crews and
So they
purchasing.
can't pose a hazard of any sort.
No, ma'am.
And it's very common. You see above ground fuel tanks in many locations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. You're looking for a
Unless there are further questions. Okay.
recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right, and then we'll move on to our next supplemental appropriation.
Thank you.
With which I believe is the city manager's office, SA 3125.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I can read through this one.
Okay.
The supplemental allocation appropriates $337,500 of federal grant revenue to the city manager's office. This is a little bit of a wonky one, so follow us through on this one. FEMA through MEMA erroneously awarded the city a grant for Jonas Green Park, which is a county park. The Resilience Authority is managing the project, and the city will send grant funds through to the Resilience Authority once received.
Got it. So let me just repeat this back to you to make sure I understand it. The feds, FEMA, gave money to MEMA. MEMA gave that money to us. We should not have had the money. The Resilience Authority should have the money to do a project for the county, and therefore we are giving the money to the Resilience Authority. That's what this would do.
Correct.
Okay.
And the fact that Jonas Green, obviously they didn't realize, was in the county.
Yeah, and I think part of the thinking was that this, just given everything else that's going on, handling it this way is the least disruptive.
Makes sense to me. All right. Any additional questions on it? Seeing none, is there a motion to make a favorable recommendation on SA 3125?
Yeah. I'll make a motion on it to give a favorable recommendation for SA 3125.
Is there a
Second, I'm sorry. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. We've made a favorable recommendation. We can get that moving. Is there anything else for the good and order of the group?
Mr. Chair, would you go over tomorrow's schedule?
Great suggestion. If our city council associate can pull it up before I can. Oh, yeah, you got, yes, Alderwoman O'Neill has it. Should have known. So tomorrow we will once again convene at 9:30 a.m. Go over the Office of Law and Election Office from 9:30 to 10:30. We will tomorrow actually start at 9:30. I'll try and be better about that. And then from 10:45 to 11:45, we'll have the Mayor's Office presented by Kate Pettit, and then we'll have Human Resources from 12:15 to 1.
A longer day.
Yep, 3 presentations.
Great.
Got it.
So whose
So
do we have?
we have law.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Oh,
we
great.
just don't have.
Ah, wow. We'll have to go step across the hall and harangue them. All right. Unless there is any other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Finance Standing Committee stands adjourned as of 11:58 a.m. on April 21st.
Thank you.